Ooh, hello everyone. We are live. We are live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're a few minutes late. Apologies. So yeah, we'll wait for. Hi, Tracy's in the back. Tracy's in the back studio watching us, celebrating.
Hi, Tracy.
Yay. You know what I am? Just because we've got a little viewer. Yeah, I was just telling backstage Liz and Megan that I'm playing 2015 hits from top hits from 2015 to get the vibe going for our birthday celebration. Just give a second. Can you hear it? It was Justin Bieber. Yeah. All right. Okay. Nothing like Justin Bieber to get the mood going. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you to our audience for joining us. And obviously, thank you to Megan, James, and Liz Walton for joining us. I will introduce them in a brief moment. But yeah, first, thank you to everyone for being here. I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is Aimee Rozen. I was one of the first Sidewalk Talk listeners back in May 2015. And now I continue to listen on the sidewalks, well, mostly virtual in the last year, but on the sidewalks, mostly in the Sunset. I'm a chapter leader for Sidewalk Talk there, and I help volunteer behind the scenes with the operations team doing volunteer support. I'm also a private practice therapist and specialize in sex therapy, mom of 2 teenage girls, wife, friend, lover, activist. That's me in a nutshell. And Tracy asked if I would host this gathering of former Sidewalk Talk listeners from the very beginning, and I graciously accepted. And again, I'm happy to be joining with all of you here today. So again, we're here celebrating 6-year birthday of Sidewalk Talk. I've been very into these lately. I keep one near me in case I need it. That is a true story. So happy birthday, Sidewalk Talk. One of the things that I like to do at the beginning of my Sidewalk Talk events to help some grounding and intention for the day, given all that it demands of us to listen with presence and intentionality, is to start with a little aromatherapy. So feel free to take a virtual inhale of this relaxation aromatherapy.
Very nice.
So good. I wish you could actually smell it. And then the other thing is I offer little stones and shells for people. So feel free to virtually, again, grab your stone. I'll grab one for myself. Even from the audience, if you're a viewer, please feel free to grab one also. And then basically just hold your stone. It will help ground you in this hour together, not quite an hour, but in this time together, and then throughout the rest of the day or for however long you have it. And think of an intention for what brought you here today. My intention is connection. I'm super looking forward to getting to know Liz and Megan more. This is our first time meeting. Yay, so lovely. There goes Sidewalk Talk again, offering connection for people. So that's our intro. I would love to hear from Megan and Liz what your, maybe Megan, you can start and let us know if you had an intention that came to mind, and just share a little bit about yourself.
Sure, thank you. I'm Megan James. I'm currently based in Seattle. I was obviously in the Bay Area in 2015. I, for work, have been in human resources, focusing on employee benefits for a very long time, 15 plus years. And the connection, employee benefits have changed, and we'll talk more about this later, to encompass more mental health and listening and talking expression of feelings versus just being like your work self, your personal self. So that's something that listening definitely complements. And I'm an auntie, 6 nieces and nephews. I'm a friend. I'm a yogi, and I don't know, all the good stuff. I love music, so great. I love the playlist to get us into the spirit.
Yeah, love it. Yay! Thank you.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yay! Lovely to have you, and thanks for sharing all that. I'm curious to hear. Yeah, I look forward to hearing more about the HR mental health perspective you have and doing the work that you're doing. It's something I think about often, of course, like, yeah, just access to mental health care and what it means in the workplace and what it means for my clients and all the things. So thank you. What about you, Liz? Tell us about you and your intention.
My intention for today is to reconnect with the Sidewalk Talk organization and to celebrate both its birthday and mine, because they are one and the same. The first sit was on May 7th in 2015, and that was my birthday. So we're just a few days early, but I've got birthday hats and stones in my aura. Like Megan, I obviously lived in San Francisco in 2015. She moved north. I moved south. I'm in LA. It's much warmer here. And I had been a massage therapist and working in the healing arts for 20 years. And I retired from that chapter of my life and dove full force into the music industry. To some people, it looks very dichotomous, like couldn't have two things farther from each other. But to me, they're very connected. Music is a huge part of my life, and it always has been. So maybe that's where I really started was listening to music. And then through my hands and the power of touch, listening to the physical body of the people that I was working with. So my goal in life and everything that I do is to connect people, places, and things. I will forget all of the things that I do. My friends that are listening or people that know me will remind me of all the things I forgot later. I just like to do things. I like to do fun things. I love to be a beginner. I love to not know what I'm doing and just give everything a try. I'm a big hockey fan, and one of my favorite quotes by Wayne Gretzky says, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." And that's kind of my philosophy in life as well. So I'm just here giving it my best and looking forward to talking with you both. The thing that's really interesting for me is that we were all in San Francisco on May 7th, 6 years ago. There was cake involved. I do remember that. But we didn't actually, I think that's important for people to know, is that we weren't all in the same spot. So I'm curious where you guys were, because I was on the Embarcadero with my friend Stephanie.
Yeah, well, thank you for your sharing about yourself. Love hearing more about you. And I feel like there are these threads of connection between the three of us, and music and healing and mental health and all the different ways of connection. And obviously we were all here on the same day back in May 2015. So there's that also. What else was I thinking? Yeah, love to hear. Listening to both of your stories, I've just been thinking a lot lately about stories as like, I feel like I'm almost stating the obvious, but I just like love the idea of like hearing someone's story. And I feel like I've gotten a little tiny glimpse of both of your stories. And hopefully this will be the beginning of more connection. And I look forward to hearing more about your personal, professional, etc. stories in time. Let's see.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I realized I didn't say what my intention was, which was the first assignment. I think being here and participating today for me is, my intent was to be open and connect. And I think that goes back to really what kind of inspired me to participate in that first day. Is there's this, I think we all need to connect, but and it's interesting we're doing this now versus last year, because even after last year, I feel like the desire and the importance of connection after a year of not really getting to connect is even stronger. But also, I think a lot of people see how important that is after not having that physical connection, the last year. So,
yeah. I appreciate all of that. Yeah, the craving of connection, like craving is the word that comes to mind. And it is interesting that this is, I mean, maybe there's been some version of it before. This is the first time I participated in something like this, and sounds like the same for both of you. So maybe there will be more to come in this realm of listeners sharing their stories. I know plenty of listeners have connected with Tracy on the podcast and in different capacities, but it is nice to hear and compare stories about the first listening. So yeah, who wants to start? How did you hear about Sidewalk Talk, and what actually brought you to the sidewalk back in May 2015?
I'm happy to go.
Go for it.
Everything is so cyclical. So in 2015, I was living in San Francisco. I was enrolled in the Tamalpa Institute Expressive Arts Therapy program. And one of my teachers was a woman named Adriana Marchione. She's good friends with Tracy. She knew me well enough to know that Marina Abramovic was a huge influence in my life. And I had been to New York to see The Artist is Present. And I sat on the side of that situation for 5 days in a row. I never sat in front of her. I just sat there and watched and listened. I was totally alone. And it was so inspiring to me. Adriana introduced me to Tracy. It seemed like the perfect thing to do on my birthday. I think I was also in a nonviolent communication course. So it was all just kind of tying up. And then I convinced my good friend Stephanie to do it with me. And so we loaded up our chairs and went and sat on the Embarcadero. And I thought, wow, the only thing missing is cake. And then Tracy provided a cake at the end of the whole thing. So
that's awesome.
And the reason that I say that it's all cyclical, because 6 years later, I'm recycling and redoing the second level of that Tamalpa level 2 training in my space here in Los Angeles on Zoom for the past year. So we're almost done. I'm graduating, which is the same point that I was in 6 years ago. So it's funny how things come around.
That's really, yeah. The energy is intense and lovely and magical.
Yeah.
Love it. Love hearing the glimpse of the story and the fact that you were in New York I think anybody who's seen that you can't be just deeply touched by that performance. And for anybody who doesn't know, maybe we'll post a link about it later. What about you, Liz? Megan. How'd you come to Sidewalk Talk 2015?
I was thinking about this, and I really couldn't remember. I'm hoping you'll tell me, because I know I saw the posting somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't remember where you guys posted it or how I discovered it, but I remember seeing it, reading it somewhere, and being like, I have to do that immediately. So
where did you listen? Where was your listening station?
I think I was on Market by Church, I believe.
Oh wow, that's a lively location.
Yes, it was great. It was great, but I still couldn't remember how. I know I saw this, you're posting the posting for the event somewhere, and immediately I was like, I'm doing this. I'm there, and so that's kind of indicative a little bit of how my life is in general. I'll see something, my gut will be like, yes, do, and I'll just do it. It's not on a daily or even monthly or yearly basis, but when I get a ping like, yes, you have to do this, that's kind of my MO. And it was for this event, that's what happened. And I even remember, I'm kind of I've always been a want-to-be therapist. So I'll be like, I'm going to put myself in a group of therapists and hang out and osmosis, I'll get the, but I remember being in the meeting that day when we all, met at that office location. and just thinking like, these are my people, even though like I'm totally not a therapist. So it was interesting. I just felt like I was supposed to be there. And yeah, it just felt like that's where I was supposed to be. And my birthday is on May 13th too. So near the date. And I was kind of like, why did I do this for myself for my birthday?
Not good. I like, again, the connections. I'm loving like the little trip down memory lane. I don't know that I've really done that with anyone about that first experience. I mean, I've just randomly talked to people who will listen about it, but like in community with other people who did it. So for those who don't know, we basically, Tracy and a woman named Lily Sloan started it together, and they promoted it, and basically said they were starting, you know, a community listening project, bringing listeners to the streets of San Francisco, asking for people who wanted to join. I think that first kind of welcoming, there were approximately 16 to 20 people who said yes. I think we met one day before the actual listening day, and in this office room, like a conference room at I think the Flood building, downtown Market Street, there was like 20 of us crammed, and like never would happen in like pandemic times, but like 20 of us like body to body, like around a big table, like processing and making reflections about it all, in anticipation of what it would be like to actually do this. I'm going to say radical and yet like simple and just very like real experience of listening to people on the streets of San Francisco. And then we were all divided into little mini groups. There had to be at least 2 people in a group. And I think we were paired kind of randomly. I didn't know the gentleman I was paired with. I would happen to be, or maybe you could choose your location to some extent. I chose the Sunset District because that's where I live, and I wanted to be connected to my community more. That's one of the reasons I was drawn to the project. Also because I'm a therapist, and I was trying to find ways to, I mean, I'm all about connection, listening, relational presence, and it's like feeds my soul, and I think feeds the souls of others to be there and to be in connection in that way. So that's what drew me, and I was really, this is like the Lucy psychiatrist little, you know, from Peanuts Lucy. I was always like looking at that, going like, oh, that would be kind of a cool way to do it. Just like set up a, you know, little shed on the sidewalk somewhere and just invite people. But it's like, oh no, I've got work and I've got this and I've got that. But I was like, this sounds like my Lucy box. Yeah. So what memories do you, like any memory that you have about who you listened to or what that was like, standing out on the sidewalks and trying to explain to people what we were doing there? Liz, do you have memories on that?
I have a couple of, I only had a few pictures from that day, and I'm not in them because I'm taking them. But one of them is some chalk that we had written on the sidewalk that said, if you have something to say, we're here to listen. Like we were trying to encourage people without interacting with them. We were sitting on the Embarcadero, and I felt more like Marina Abramovic in that moment at the beginning, where it's like we're sitting there with these empty chairs. You know, we were there to be mindful and present and listen to people. So we weren't out there with big flyers and bandanas and balloons trying to get people's attention. We were more getting their attention with our stillness and with our quietness. And so I do remember sitting there for the first hour just with these empty chairs across from us, wondering if anybody would actually sit down, and having conversations kind of quietly between the two of us of like, is this going to work? And what I really remember is the way that I felt when people were walking by, like curious, confused, intrigued, and curious, I guess, this like, you know,
a little bit suspicious too, right?
Suspicious.
Yeah, it's like, wait, what?
Yeah. So then I think we finally, we changed our approach a little bit. Like we decided to stand away from the chairs, which then was still an interesting piece to look at, because now you have 4 empty chairs sitting there with two humans trying to engage people. And in San Francisco on the Embarcadero, people do not really want to be engaged. They're not there to make friends. They're going someplace, they have something to do, and you're not that important. So what we tried to do was show people that they are important, and then really inviting them into our chairs. So I remember kind of the awkward and the uncomfortableness of it. And it wasn't a bad thing. It was just more of a new thing. And I do remember some people sitting there and we just said, we'll listen to anything. And so then really people kind of taking some initiative, going deeper than they may have if we hadn't said anything at all, and just really having a sweet connection. And for, especially in this time and especially in that time, to actually have a connection and to be met full frontal with someone and who's really listening, it's such a gift. And I think we take it for granted. And I think that this project really helped to kind of open that and unearth that for at least the three of us and all the people we contacted that day.
Agree on notes. Yeah.
What is interesting with that time, 2015, it seems like from in the years after, more listening, social media has become so much bigger. Instagram, people are using that to communicate. And this kind of, communicating, hearing people, having dialogues in larger culture in general, I feel has also kind of from that point really skyrocketed in a much quicker way than it has in the past. So it's interesting to see that day and how the greater culture has really started connecting out via social media and online. But I think there's more connection, in the years since that day as well, that I see in general. Some of that's really great. Some of it's not so great, just like any other form of, communication. But I do see that increase from around that time kind of starting as well. Same thing in terms of that day and the experience. People, kind of by the Castro, you're right there before the Castro, you're kind of in that little area between, the Mission, Castro, almost on your way going downtown. So sometimes people are really like, I don't want to be bothered, in San Francisco in general, but there are also a lot of people who are really like enthusiastic, like, what are you guys doing? And that was fun too, to have that engagement and enthusiasm. But I think once people sat down in the chair and you were kind of like, there was what should I talk about? What am I supposed to talk about? Whatever's on your mind. Did you, how was your day? And even just saying, how is your day going? That kind of invites the response. And then it kind of can lead to other things. Well, come to think of it, I was feeling a little low this morning because, and that's kind of how the opening up in some of the people that sat down really began, was just saying like, how are you doing today? And, after that, oh, it's fine. Well, and then it kind of starts to unpeel, and you're, and that was kind of the cool part for me, is somebody getting up and going like, thank you so much. I feel better.
It's honestly so magical. Like, again, so I have continued to listen. So for 6 years, I've sort of like set it up that I was going to do it quarterly, just so that I don't overwhelm myself, but I like make a steady commitment to doing it on a regular basis. But I've never listened on the sidewalk without being like completely touched and in awe, as if it was the first time again. It's, I do have, though, a memory from my first listening experience, so again, it was a gentleman and I, who I don't know, and I unfortunately don't remember his name, even though I had the list of all the first listeners. I should have like tracked him down and like said hi, but I didn't. Maybe I will after. But he was very like gregarious. So his approach, we sort of like brainstormed what our approach was going to be, but he took it to like a level that was different than I thought our intended approach was. He was very much like listening happening here, like, you know, kind of just like one of the people on the corner with like the signs, you know. And I was feeling quite nervous that day. I was feeling like, my gosh, like, how, you know, am I going to be able to do this? What does it mean to listen to strangers? And, you know, again, like, I'm all about listening. I listen. I'd like to think that it's like a daily, thoughtful, intentional practice, and I certainly do it in my work. But I was still nervous. I was like, this is a different kind of listening, and, you know, sure, it's different, and that the atmosphere was different. But listening is listening. Like, it's like being present, focusing on what the other person's saying, trying to receive it, not necessarily inserting yourself or giving your own judgment or advice or like activity. What was that?
Nope.
And so, yeah, I remember just feeling a little bit more tender is a way to describe it. And just there's one memory that stands out that I am actually embarrassed to share, but I do for the sake of vulnerability and transparency and all that. I was waiting. We set it up where like one person would stand and invite people to listen or to come speak, and then one person would sit in the chair across the other open chair. And I had brought like little tray tables with plants and things to try to like invite like calm setting. And so my partner was talking to a passerby who was a dad who had been pushing his daughter in a stroller. And so they were just chit-chatting kind of next to me. And the dad said to the daughter, well, how about if you get out and sit to be heard? She was like 3, maybe 2.5. And I love children. I have children. I was like not far from, I mean, my kids were younger then, so I had plenty of that age child in my life. I'm like a developmental specialized therapist, like all the things, like great connection to children. This little girl sat down and I was like, oh gosh, she's taking up, like, this space wasn't for her. Like, it was for someone else. Like if she sits there, like, then somebody else, like, I didn't feel like she was the person who should take the seat. And then I was like, had like this epiphany, and I'm like, obviously she started talking, she started talking and sharing her story, and she was telling me about her lollipop and her day and all the things. And I was like, oh my goodness, Aimee, this little person wants to be listened to, you know, like, this is what this is, like, it's listening. And I'm like, I was just like, almost like verklempt, like, okay, like, I'm listening, you've got me. But yeah, I'll never forget that, because I just like this kind of contradiction to like what I was there for, and the idea that somebody who needed to be listened to had a certain profile. And really what it comes down to is we all need to be listened to, even 2-year-olds. Even if they want to talk about their lollipop for 4 minutes straight, they need to be listened to. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that vulnerable story.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like really young people and then also older people it's so easy for them to not be listened to. And my short, vulnerable story, similar to yours, is this week. I was dropping off some stuff to get framed, and the guy was an older gentleman. I had a ton of stuff to frame. He was trying to engage me in conversation. I felt like I was too busy and I didn't really want to connect with him. And then I realized, like, okay, I'm not too busy. He really wants to connect with me. This is a gift. And I can give him a gift of listening right now. And I'm going to be on the Sidewalk Talk Live podcast in a few days. So I should practice what I preach. And but it was just so easy to kind of dismiss him and his story and trying to connect with me. And then I just, like you said, I brought myself back and went, okay, wait a second. Don't miss this right now. And it's just it can be so easy to do. And we're all given lots of opportunities every day to practice.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a constant
the situational thing, I think, to your point, we do get in these boxes where we're like, I'm at sidewalk talk, I'm here to listen today, or I'm at work, I'm here to do my work today. And it's especially going back to this past year where everyone's doing like everything at home, like all these things overlap. And as long as we're, like you said, we're present and we see the opportunities at all times to connect, that's, I think, the magic and the power of listening, wherever you are.
Right. It's something we have the capacity to bring in any moment.
Right. And it's powerful.
Right. So I'm going to I know we're at 12:30-ish, and I want to be mindful of your time. And then I'm also saying that we have so many lovely, hopefully the comments go up in the actual video, like recordings. But I'm just going to read some of the stuff. Tracy's our cheerleader on the sideline. She says, "You all cute. So great to see your faces." She says, "I'm a great party planner." She said, oh yeah, she's saying that we all met together that first day. It was the Hobart building. She's saying, "Happy birthday to you both." And yeah, I'm not going to read the rest, but you two go back, and she's given lots of accolades and like tender support to us all. So hopefully you'll be able to revisit that. So let's see, just real quick, have either of you listened on the sidewalks formally with Sidewalk Talk since that first day?
No, but that will change after this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, Megan, remind me where you are.
I'm in Seattle. So shortly after, like a few months after that first day, I ended up moving to Seattle.
Yeah. I think there's no pressure, but I think there are chapters in both of your areas. So if you feel inspired, feel free to join in, and you can always start your own if you feel so inclined.
And well, I will actually be moving back to California soon. It's very strange that, talk about the circle that, Liz was talking about. Total life transition in multiple ways at that time. Exact same thing is happening to me at this point in my life. So, this is kind of like bookends. That first day and this anniversary is little anchors or markers for me. So, thank you.
I'm giving you I'm giving you a high five.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's awkward, right? Oh, video. Let's see. So I'm going to just read a part of the mission for Sidewalk Talk, which is, it includes the world, kind of a reflection of the world loves to talk. Words aren't enough. Listening helps people open up, share more, reconnect in an increasingly lonely world. Which, just saying the word lonely and thinking about loneliness always grabs me by the heart. Mm-hmm. Because I know so many people, are suffering and sitting with loneliness. We in Sidewalk Talk are here to hear people's stories, making the circle of humanity bigger. And so I'm just wondering when you think of that, when you think of Sidewalk Talk, and I know we were touching on it at various points today, what part of like the value of Sidewalk Talk do you think you hold with you today, or what part of what listening is about are you bringing into your life? Whoever wants to.
Well, I'll say that the thing with that day, the listening instructions were just to listen. We just had to listen. There was no giving solutions, trying to fix, trying to dismiss feelings, and not in a bad way. I think Americans in general want people to feel better when they're in pain. And so just listening, I think sometimes somebody speaking and getting something out is all that's needed. That is the magic and they feel better. They don't need my solution or my fixing or the dismissing of feelings like, no, you'll be fine. Everything's going to work out. Like sometimes things aren't going to work out, but we still get through them. So I think just having that directive, and all you do is listen, no feedback, just receive and make this space for somebody to speak. And that seems really simple, but I think we all know that it's so tempting to want to give you some, just support, like, and it's so powerful when you leave that space alone after somebody is able to express themselves. Just let it kind of marinate there for that person, and give that to them. It's like, again, it sounds like, ooh, that's so simple, but I don't think it's always simple. But it's very, powerful, in some cases healing, and in some cases magical, in some cases it's just a simple thing like, I'm glad I got that out. I can move on,
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, the wonder of it all.
So taking that into, taking that in the spirit of that into my own life with people that I love and I'm invested in, I think it's easier maybe when you're not emotionally attached to somebody, you don't have those, connections emotionally where you want this or you have anything that's kind of influencing your response or how you're being of service. But I think it could be equally as positive with the people we love and we care about, giving them also that space of stillness, of quietness, of not trying to fix or dismiss or make them feel better, because it really is very, powerful. I work on it all the time. It's a constant practice.
It's so true. So true. Thank you for sharing all of that. How about you?
For me, just in kind of doodling here, listen means love, intention, sincerity, trust, embodiment, and nourishing.
Oh my gosh. I
just made it up. I'll try to remember it later.
So beautiful. That is so beautiful.
But in thinking about the word listen and thinking about 2015 to 2021, the things that I'm listening to in 2021 are not things that I were listening to in 2015. Mostly thinking about racial equality and all of that's happening in our world right now. I wish that I had been listening to that in 2015. But here I am. I've been listening for a little over a year now, and my ears are open, my heart is open, and I'm just listening as much as I can to voices that haven't been heard and haven't had this space to be heard as much. The three of us could sit here quietly and just listen all day long. And so I'm trying to keep my answers short so that Aimee can ask all her questions.
Oh, you're sweet. I know. I'm like, okay, take 2 in 2 weeks, another Wednesday at noon.
Yeah.
Yes. Hopefully, whether it's shared with our community or like the three of us together, like hopefully this is the start of more connecting and listening. But I mean, yeah, we could go on and on. Real quick though, on that note, I do appreciate you sharing, like kind of, that was one of the things I did want to hear a little bit more about. So you just sort of offered that, but I don't know if you both know that part of the reason or the basis of Tracy wanting to start Sidewalk Talk was in response to the Trayvon Martin killing. And again, when I think about that, I didn't know that at the time, but I came to learn that later, and again felt like an even stronger like kindred connection and calling to this project. I've been involved in gun violence prevention, social justice, racial injustice activism, like many years. And actually was listening on the sidewalk the day of the Parkland shooting, and like it just, yeah, there's so many ways where it comes in connection. And I too am like still leaning in, as Maisha Hill, who used to be, not used to be, she's still a part of Sidewalk Talk. I think she leads the Oakland chapter. I think her motto is like live the work of what it means to lean in, to listen, to create space. And I'm still trying to do that. I'll continue to try to do that, but it's a constant calling.
Mm-hmm.
Anything? So we're at 12:42, and my goodness, I gave us a big menu for today.
I mean, there's so many things that I think we could talk about, and I'm totally loving the idea of a take two, no matter how it turns out. But one thing you mentioned in the beginning, Aimee, was, talking about storytelling and that how people do have stories to tell. And another shift for me is that in 2015, I was listening, and I was deeply listening, and I'm still deeply listening. And in 6 years later, I've really changed that around. Now I feel like I actually have something to say. And so I have been working on using my voice, finding my voice, helping other women to find their voices. And last year I joined a storyteller group called the Universe Monologues. And I told an 8-minute story live because we were in a pandemic. We had to record them pre-recorded, but it's on YouTube. You can find it under my name. And so it's interesting to be on both sides. It's interesting to be on the listening side and to really hear people, and then to really craft and hone a story and to tell that story and have someone else deeply listen to it. And both, there's an amazing exchange that happens. And I do think that as humans, we all have a story to tell. And there's so many reasons why we don't, whether it's shame or fear or laziness, it doesn't matter. But when you find people that are great listeners, it makes your story a little bit easier to tell. So I encourage anybody who, wants to listen in this way to sign up and figure out how to do it virtually. I don't know how, but I'll figure it out. I'm sure Tracy will email me ASAP. And if you have a story to tell, to find somebody in this community that's really willing to listen and let your story be heard, because your voice is important and no one else can tell your story because it's yours and it's your gift to the world.
Love that.
Same.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that. So, oh gosh, final. Megan, do you want to share any final thoughts? Or I know I said bring a quote or a poem if you want to share.
Sure, I definitely have a quote, and it's from the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, or Tolle, depending on how you pronounce it. And it's true communication is a communion. And that is part of the quote. The rest of it is the realization of oneness, which is love. And so I do feel like from that day, it might seem odd to think that with a stranger, just hearing somebody, allowing somebody to speak and listening, you're like, I don't know them, I don't love them, we don't have a personal relationship, but it really is. We're all connected. And being able to, create space for somebody to speak and be heard is loving. And, some of those conversations were very fun and playful. Some were really intimate. And, I see that as a communion of sorts. So I like that one.
So good.
Yeah, I appreciate how you just touched again on all the different, of course, all the different stories. I mean, I would love to just say a glimpse of this story, a glimpse of this story, a glimpse of this story, just holding them all together and just all the different variations of them, each person's story in that moment in time that they decided to share. It's pretty intense, and sometimes light and sometimes fun and sometimes tragic and sometimes confusing. What about you, Liz? Did you have a quote or a poem you want to end on?
I do. I have a poem sent to me this morning by my lovely poetry teacher, Holly Wren Spalding. It's untitled by Sid Corman. I will tell you a secret. Listen. What is it, you ask? I keep telling you. Listen.
Ah, that was so freaking we're gonna need like a debriefing. Virtual, written, all the things, all the feels. Maya Angelou, like, always go back to the quote. I don't want to mess it up. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think listening is a way to show people that you care for them, that you love them, that you are connected to them in humanity, and the feeling that someone can get from being listened to, I think, is pretty profound. Deep breaths, taking it all in. Thank you, both of you, for being here, and our audience, and anybody who decides to watch later. I know we had a few other things we were hoping to get to, but what's that?
It flew.
Right? I know. I always overestimate, like overplan, because I'm like fearful that they'll just be like, okay, 10 minutes after, that was awesome, thanks for coming. Apparently that happened again here. But yeah, I feel like we touched on many lovely thoughts and themes and offerings. So hope people
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Yay.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Sidewalk.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye. Gonna go through the quick, let me see if I've missed any questions. All right, lovely. Thanks for joining, people. Take care.